The law firms that struck a deal with Trump thought that they could make a deal to their benefit. They figured they would put some junior associates on some pro bono work, some causes that maybe weren't so bad. Junior associates bill quite a bit at those firms, so even if they were donating or committing to $100 million pro bono, that could get burned through pretty fast. Well, soon after, Trump, as I talked about, said he was going to put them on trade deals instead. Trade deals carry quite a bit of liability, as I've just discussed. I highly doubt Kirkland and Ellis, who, according to the New York Times, did work on these Japan and South Korea trade deals. They said that it was unclear whether or not they were paid. According to Trump, as we saw him out in the video, he planned on using their services for free. Certainly, they weren't going to be able to just use some junior associates' time. The stakes, the liability to the firm for them giving bad input in such a high stakes deal shows this is what happens when you try to do a deal with Trump. Just take a listen to how he really believed that he now owned these firms. And this is the problem for capitulating to somebody like Trump.
How close are you to the first country coming to actually make a deal with the United States over tariffs? Is it days, months?
Well, I think it's very close, but we have to have a deal that we like. We don't want a deal that's going to be a bad deal, or I could make every deal in one day if I wanted to. I could do this in one day. I could just say, here's what we'll do. And I was saying to the people before, to Scott, mostly to Scott and Howard, and some of the other people that work with us on the negotiations. We have a lot of law firms that have paid me a lot of money in the form of legal fees. We're going to probably use those firms to, if we can, I think we can. I'll make a contribution to the country, but they're great firms. They're the best firms, the biggest, and really the most prestigious. And we may be using them to help you guys out, because you're going to need a lot of lawyers. And I'm not sure Pam's going to be happy if I say, can you send over about 200 lawyers that work on trade? She's working on criminal stuff, and I think that's going to be her focus more than anything else. So we'll find out if we can do that. But we have a lot of lawyers that you've been reading about where they paid $100 million a firm on average. Now we have the final 4 or 5 are at $125 million. So I have a lot of legal fees I could give to you people, and we might as well use them. Hopefully I won't need that many legal fees or that much. I may. Who knows? After it ends, after we leave, maybe I'll need it. But if I do, it's not going to be very pleasant. So I think we're going to try to use these very prestigious firms to help us out with the trade, because we have a lot of countries. But we want to make deals that are proper for the United States, not just we can make deals easily. We want to make them.
We have some new reporting. Remember those 9 law firms that chose to enter a deal with Trump rather than fight what was obviously an unconstitutional executive order trying to stop them from practicing law the way that they wanted to? Well, that bill has come due, according to the New York Times. My name is Dina Doll with the MeidasTouch Network. Let's get into this. So as we know, these 9 law firms decided to capitulate to Trump in the face of an executive order forcing them to, change their practices, saying that they were, trying to combat DEI, Trump saying that the law firms, their use of their pro bono practice was somehow wrong and trying to attack them. 4 law firms, as we know, chose to fight Trump, and they won resoundingly in court because the executive orders were a clear unconstitutional executive order, clearly restricting the free speech of the law firms. I mean, let's just for a second step back. Law firms do pro bono work all the time. When I was at a corporate law firm, I did pro bono work. It is a private company, and they can decide whether or not their employees do pro bono work. Yes, a lot of times they do pro bono work, like I did immigration pro bono work, perhaps in ways Republicans don't like, but it's none of their business. This is a private company. So clearly, the law firms should have known how unconstitutional this executive order was. Their whole job is to know the law. But instead of doing so, they thought that it would help their reputation, help their business to instead capitulate to Trump and sign an agreement with him. They signed an agreement with him, giving him up to $1 billion collectively of free pro bono work, thinking somehow this was going to save them. We saw instead partners leaving Paul Weiss because of the fact of lawyers not liking that they were now being beholden to Trump. This has hurt their reputation, hurt them financially. I mean, it didn't take that long to know that this was going to happen. Look what happened with Rudy Giuliani and all his other lawyers the first term. But they decided to sign. And the New York Times is saying now for the first time, we have concrete evidence that two of these law firms, Kirkland Ellis and Skadden Arps, two major law firms in the United States, have been formally connected by Trump's personal attorney. Boris Epstein has formally connected them to the Commerce Department. And one of those law firms, Kirkland Ellis, did work for Trump on his trade deals with Japan and South Korea. This is new reporting. It has never been reported before. Now, here you have, again, these law firms, when they signed these agreements, they said they were planning on doing pro bono work for, Trump's causes, right? Trump's causes, veterans causes, etc. Of course, anybody who believed that somehow Trump was going to, limit them to causes that maybe, the entire country would believe in, the fact that they believed it in itself shows what poor judgment it was to enter into this contract. Soon after saying it, Trump said, well, no, I plan on doing it. He did an executive order saying that they were going to help with, police misconduct cases and even his personal litigation. Well, here we have the trade deals. Now, the trade deals, as we know, in themselves are a mess. Right now, Trump lost at the trade court because very possibly he wasn't even legally able to impose these tariffs. That's what the trade court said, that under the law, Congress and not the president can impose these tariffs. And this is now on an appeal in the federal appellate court. As we know, Trump has gone in. He has said that if the court overturns this, then we might end up with a depression because we need this money. These law firms, Skadden Arps, they possibly, but Kirkland Ellis, we know, according to the New York Times, worked on this, is now in the middle of helping with these tariffs war that are in themselves possibly illegal. And even when you speak about just what happened with the Japan trade deal, when you are a lawyer to a client, you in some ways have to no, if the client is lying, you cannot then repeat that lie in court. You can be disbarred for that. Here you have a client like Trump who can never be honest. And the implications for that, for this major law firm, that's like the last thing they want to do. This was their corporate, their transactional lawyers. Obviously, this isn't litigation. This is entering into an agreement. So we don't know the details of how they helped with the trade negotiations. Did they help draft the agreement? Did they help research the law for the agreement? But what we do know, and is publicly available, is that Trump has lied about the agreement. Specifically, Trump said that Japan would funnel $550 billion into the United States. And of course, the Japanese chief trade negotiator had to come out and correct that and say, no, it was actually a blend of investments and loan guarantees. And the profits were going to be allocated based on each side's commitment. And the fact is the written agreement between the parties is not publicly available. So you have Trump, the consummate liar saying one thing about the deal and Japan saying another. And certainly those of us here at MeidasTouch are going to believe the Japanese version of the events. But you have this big law firm in the middle of it. And are they going to be implicated? Or are they going to have to testify at some point about whose version of the agreement is right? Are they going to have to they may have Japanese clients who are like, why are you in the middle of a deal that your client is lying about? How am I going to feel as if you're going to represent my interests? The implications of Trump dragging them through his deals that he lies about, and that may even blatantly be unlawful, depending on how that trade court and the appellate court and possibly the Supreme Court ultimately ends up. But you have this multinational corporate firms having, international clients being embroiled in Trump's mess, his lies, his mess. And this is what these law firms get for not just standing up and saying no to an executive order that was clearly unconstitutional. Anybody who thinks the easy way out with Trump is a win does it to their peril. Who knows what's next, what other deals, what other causes Trump is going to put them on. If I were them, I would get out while I could. Anyway, be sure to free subscribe to the network if you haven't yet, and you'll get updates on this and many other issues to come.
The truth is more important than ever. Check out our new Truth Over Lies collection at store.MeidasTouch.com. All 100% USA union made.